If you're an ambitious man looking to build that attractive body, yet when it comes to nutrition, you are completely blanking. You don't know what to eat. You don't know what to trust or believe anymore on social media, then this video is for you because I was once in your shoes. And after 3, 4 years of experimenting and playing around, I finally found a simple diet that us kind of guys can follow. Guys who want to live life, not like a robot, not tracking our food all the time. We're having health as a priority and not a job. So if that sounds like you, then stick around because this video will be extremely informational. All right, this is the simple diet for muscle growth, fat loss, and energy. I made this video for the man who's looking to maximize his performance inside and outside of the gym without living life like a robot. Not bringing the food scale on vacation, not tracking every single bite, obsessing over macros and whatnot. Just being able to live like a human, be able to have energy, not just in the gym, but also like doing work, relationships, and having all that, because that's also equally important. The gym is a priority, but it's not meant to be your entire life unless you're a bodybuilder. But if you're watching this and you're not a bodybuilder, you want to build that attractive body, but also balance everything else in life too, like your relationships and your work, then this video is for you and keep watching. So why is nutrition so hard to get down? Well, there's just so much advice online. People are posting like thousands of posts a day. You're seeing all this overcomplicated advice online, new information circling left and right, and you just don't know like what is right and what is not. You got guys like this picture right here of this gentleman eating off a cutting board. It's like, not gonna lie, that looks delicious, but come on, just get a plate. Why does every guy have to have a cutting board for his like good-looking food now? You got people saying on one side saying carnivore, other people saying vegan. You got guys in the middle saying keto. And you're just left spinning your wheels confused, thinking that nutrition is just super overcomplicated thing. And maybe you listen to the bodybuilders too, and you're tracking every single macro and calorie, the food scale on vacation, living life like a robot. And you're just left feeling confused, inconsistent, low energy, and even if you got some results, they're not long term. So what's the solution then? What do you do when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to fueling for your goals? I'm glad you asked, because the answer is simplicity. In this world that we live in, that's full of distraction, full of noise, simplicity is going to win. Now, you don't have to live life like a robot. You just need some basic discipline. Being able to have structure in your eating, but it doesn't have to control your life at the same time. You don't have to be like the battle droids from Star Wars. They're just, like robots. When you eat like a high performer, you're going to go about your day with consistent energy, avoid feeling heavy and bloating and whatnot from all like the processed crap you're putting into your body. And you're going to use food tracking as a tool, not an obsession. And more on that later. Think about guidelines over meal plans. Guidelines are something that we can follow, give our eating some sort of structure, and build up on that basic discipline, rather than the obsession of meal plans, which aren't going to be like sustainable for the long term. Maybe for a couple months you can follow that and see some results, yeah. But if you want to shred down or build up some muscle and keep that body, then the only way to do that is by having a consistent plan. We have to think in decades, not in months, not in weeks, but in decades. What can we realistically sustain for the rest of our lives if needed? Like, is it gonna be a crash diet like carnivore, keto, vegan, or whatnot? Or is it gonna be like the guidelines I'm gonna follow through? Well, I'll let you be the deciding factor behind that. First off, the foundation. I'm sure you already knew this. This was definitely gonna be in the video, but repetition is gonna be necessary for you to learn and take action on this. You have to cut out as much processed food as possible, and better yet, swap it with whole foods. Whole foods, think about stuff that's been around for the past 100 years. If it has been around, if it's not, whole foods are stuff that you would find in like the perimeter of a grocery store, like your meats, your eggs, vegetables, fruits, and whatnot. Stuff that's been around without any sort of packaging on it. And 80 to 90% of your diet should consist of these whole foods. And 10 to 20, leave it for social events. You go to restaurants with friends, girlfriend, family, whatnot. You're on vacation. Stuff's gonna happen. You don't have to be the person who gives up desserts and gives up sweet treats here and there. But you need to carry that, again, basic discipline. Carry that structure throughout your day if you want to keep your goals. Because I'm not going to lie to you, like everyone else out there saying, oh, you can just dirty bulk and whatnot and you'll look good. Like, no. This picture right here was taken of a bodybuilder, Jeff said, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he started off like looking like that. Like insane genetics, definitely on steroids still, but crazy physique. And after dirty bulking, he went from that to that. You know, still huge objectively, a lot more muscular than most people, but come on, he's fat. He looks unhealthy. He lost his jawline and any sort of like attractiveness in him too. He's bloating. He's probably having low energy throughout the day compared to this guy. Well, even in this picture, he probably has like low energy from being such low body fat. That's besides the point. The point is that, sure, like food is important, yeah. And like you have to eat enough to gain weight and whatnot, or to put on muscle. But it shouldn't just be any sort of food that we put in our body. You know, calories in, calories out, that is complete nonsense. We want to eat foods that leave us feeling energized, that feel us feeling like light, refreshed, and ready to go. Not like bulky and unhealthy. And to provide you an example of some whole foods that you can implement today that won't leave you feel bloated, that will leave you feeling energized for your workouts and for your life, this is my own grocery list. So as you can see here, I'll have like ground beef, steak, Greek yogurt, and eggs for my protein. And this isn't law. If you like chicken, if you like fish, totally add in your diet. But I just like to keep things simple. You know, the whole point of this slide is to show that simplicity wins. I don't like having variety because that means more decision fatigue, which means I'll make a wrong decision or like a bad decision or spend too much time thinking when I could have just gone for the basics. And for me, I like going for the basics. I like going for foods that I know will hit my macronutrients, but also my micronutrient goals as well. Carbs, so I'll have some oats here and there, bananas, some bread like whole wheat, sourdough, potatoes, and some frozen berries and honey. And for my fruits and vegetables, I get them frozen because I don't want them to be like moldy or like wilted in my fridge. So by getting them frozen, I can just like put them in the microwave for a bit or put them on the stovetop for like my spinach or whatnot with my eggs. And they'll cook and I can use them at my own convenience. So little pro tip right there. Get your fruits and vegetables frozen if you're not always eating them. If you want to get them fresh, totally fine. Fats, I get most of my fat from my proteins already, and you probably get enough fat throughout the day as it is for like your own foods. So olive oil, I mean, you can't get enough of that. I cook my eggs, I cook my beef in there sometimes. When I cook my potatoes in the air fryer, I drizzle of olive oil as well. And the vegetables, broccoli and spinach, just these foods alone, I've recognized that they hit all of my macro and micronutrient goals. You can play around with what works for you, but this is what works for me. And if you just want like a basic guideline to follow, I would just take a snapshot of this, try out some of the foods, and see whether or not you like them and how you feel after eating them. But this is what generally works for me. Now, am I having all these foods daily? Well, for the most part, yes, but some foods like steak and whatnot, no. I'm not having steak every single day. But like ground beef, most of the days I'm having ground beef and eggs and Greek yogurt. Like, pick out some staples that you can have daily. The PCC rule. So if you want to maximize your performance inside and outside the gym in a simplistic way, we have to ensure that our eating matches that goal. So to match that goal, we have to make sure everything's being hit. And the PCC rule dictates that each meal that you have requires having some sort of a protein. You know, like from my grocery list, like the steak, ground beef and whatnot, or the Greek yogurt as you can see right here. Some sort of carb, so like rice, potatoes and whatnot. And then finally color, vegetables and or fruit. So if each one of your plates follow the PCC rule, you'd be in a great position. You know, better off than having to like eat like a bunch of like processed junk or having to overthink things. Just follow this simple rule. And as you can see here, this kind of, I mean, this is like, I actually like just finished eating this this plate right here too. Like I have this meal almost daily, like Monday through Friday. Weekends, it's kind of up in the air. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's like a restaurant. For the most part, it's like my ground beef and rice bowls right here. When I'm going out, I follow the PCC rule. This is taken at a Japanese restaurant here. I'm not a fan of sushi, by the way. I hate sushi, can't stand it. Can't stand the idea of raw meat. Maybe I'll succumb over time, but for now, I can't stand the idea of raw meat. So I got some steak, some vegetables, and some rice. And then finally, every single morning after my workout and before work or while I'm working, I'll have my, as you can see, I'm on my laptop working here. I'll have my post-workout snack, which is Greek yogurt with frozen berries with honey drizzle on top. And sometimes I'll put oats if I want some extra carbs. And sometimes a banana if getting extra carbs if I need it for a more intensive workout. So now we know what you can eat, like what foods to eat, and like how to craft your meals. what exactly, or like how much should you be eating? First off, just track your current food intake and your weight for the first 1 to 2 weeks, and just to see like that kind of trend, like your weight and current food intake trend. When you're tracking your weight, step on the scale first in the morning. If you go in your underwear, naked, whatever, but whatever you do, just make sure you just do it the same exact thing. So if on day 1 you go naked, day 2 for like 14, go naked or underwear or whatnot. Just keep it consistent so your weight isn't changing all the time. And by the end of the 7 to 14 days, just compare your weight trend to your starting weight and see whether it's going up, down, or maintaining, and decide whether or not, decide what direction you want to take it to. And that's gonna tell you exactly what your next direction should be when it comes to your increasing or decreasing or even maintaining your food intake, depending on what your goals are. But whatever you do, make sure your protein intake is increased until you hit about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So you can efficiently pack on muscle, especially if you're losing weight. You don't want to lose muscle. You want to make sure you're losing mostly fat. So to maximize the keeping, or the even better yet, building a muscle, keep your protein intake high. You hear it all the time, but it's true. 0.8, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And it's really not that hard to do, especially once you have the PCC rule and the foods I mentioned earlier in your diet. Now, when it comes to meal design, making these plates and having more go-to meals, I recommend following the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Design your own In-N-Out menu. I'm from California, and we have In-N-Out here, and I love it because it's so simple. I know exactly what I want to get each and every time. I don't have to go through a huge menu from the Cheesecake Factory, which is just packed full of information and makes me scratch my head each and every time. I just can't figure out what I want. There's just too many options. But at In-N-Out, I'll be in line and I know exactly what I want. I can just read off them I want the 4 patties and whatnot, the 4x0. So you want to take the same exact approach when it comes to making your own meals, because variety is going to kill consistency. Variety is going to lead you to have to track your macros like a bodybuilder all the time, food scale and whatnot. But if you keep things simple, you follow the PCC rule, more likely than not, on top of of course, finding your baseline and seeing how much food you should be eating, you're going to be pretty much free from having to track your macros because you'll be able to eyeball it all. I recommend the 2-week tracking just so you get a nice little baseline and you understand how much you do need. But after that, as long as the scale is going where you want it, you really don't have to track. Don't have to be perfect. Just eyeball things out and stay consistent with it, because simple and sustainable equals consistency. And with consistency, again, decades, not months, that's where results come in. And a bit of a bonus tip I got for you today is time-efficient tools to invest in. These are some of the tools that have personally saved me and my family a lot of time in the kitchen, because if there's one thing I hate ever since I was little, was wasting time. Because I remember my parents, well, they still tell me now, they tell me stories about how when I was younger, I always want to go back to my video games and everything. Whenever we would go out shopping, I'm oh my God, it's such a waste of my time, wasting my time. I still have that mentality today. Obviously not for video games, but for time with my business. I don't want to lose too much time on that, or things like cooking or lifting weights. I don't want to spend more than 60 minutes. I don't want to spend more time than I have to on things. It's when it comes to fitness, health, relationships, work on the business and whatnot. I just hate wasting time. So for you to avoid wasting time, especially if you carry that same mentality, get a rice cooker, as that's especially if you're cooking rice. If you're not cooking rice, then don't get a rice cooker. But if you are, it's going to take away the need for you to monitor the stove, just watch if it's boiling or not and whatnot. And it turns off automatically. And it's just nice to have, because you could be working the entire time while the rice cooker, your air fryer, the crock pot's going on. And while that's cooking, you could be working, keeping up with what you're doing. And by the time it's done, you're ready to eat. And it just maybe it's 5 minutes of prep for your meal, and it's a 30-minute cook time. You would have had to been more attentive back then, but now with these tools, you don't have to be as attentive, which is super nice. An air fryer, perfect if you want potatoes or just anything else that you want to try air fried. Love it. You don't have to wait for the thing to preheat, because it just automatically starts, which is awesome. You know how ovens can be, especially if you have a higher temperature. It can take a bunch of minutes to go, 5 minutes. You have to wait for the stupid thing to go. Love it for potatoes, and it's a perfect swap for processed junk like French fries or like your frozen foods. It tastes amazing. I made a video a couple days ago on the 5-minute meal. I highly recommend that you go watch that. I go through exactly how I cook my ground beef and rice bowls with the potatoes, and I use the air fryer there and the rice cooker. So go check that out, especially if you want a little like DIY, like a not DIY, a little tutorial. And last but not least, a crock pot. I personally don't have one right now, but when I move into my own place next year, totally gonna get one. My family uses this, my girlfriend uses it, and it's awesome. You just throw in like all your ingredients for a meal, like beef or broth and whatnot. You can make like stews out of it. It's really cool. It just cooks while you're working. So you can like leave the house for like a 8-12 hour shift or whatnot, come back and it's ready, which is awesome. And your house, it smells amazing too with all the stuff that you put in there. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found that information valuable. And not only that, but I hope that you take action on this, because this is the exact kind of information that I wish I had when I was in your shoes. I hope that you kind of realize that nutrition is actually extremely simple. It just requires the right structure and systems.